My guest today is Professor Harshni Karunaratne of Swansea University. She's here to talk to us about her dad, late Professor G.D. Wijayawardhana. Professor Harshni Karunaratne is one of the sponsors of the APSL scholarship scheme, funding a child in Sri Lanka from a needy family who would otherwise is at the risk of falling out of education. So it's my pleasure to welcome Professor Karunaratne and get to know her a little bit and to talk to her in more detail about her father, after whose name she has named the scholarship. Good morning, Professor Karunaratne.
Morning, Marvin.
It's a pleasure to have you. Can you please tell us, for everybody's benefit, what your current role at the university is?
I'm a professor in coastal engineering in the Faculty of Science and Engineering at Swansea University. So currently I lead the coastal engineering research group. I'm doing research and teaching at the university.
During this part, we would like to concentrate on your dad. And I know him as Professor G.D. Wijayawardhana. What does G.D. stand for?
Gamage Don.
Gamage Don Wijayawardhana. Yeah, now that you mentioned those details, I have a feeling I have heard that name before, maybe whether from the media, newspapers, I don't know. Right. So Professor Gamage Don Wijayawardhana, what time period we are looking at when he was sort of well known in the academic world? What era was it? What sort of time window?
He graduated from University of Peradeniya in late 50s.
Yeah.
And then he joined the university as a lecturer soon after he graduated.
Yeah.
And was there until early 70s at Peradeniya.
Yeah.
So after he graduated, he did his PhD in Pune University in India.
Yeah.
And then went back again to Peradeniya and was there until 72, I think.
Yeah.
After that, he joined Colombo University when they in the Sinhala department in the Faculty of Arts at Colombo.
Yeah.
And was there until 2004. 2003 he retired, and then he passed away in 2007, unfortunately.
So he was in the academic world between Peradeniya and Colombo universities, right from sort of late 50s up to 2003 when he retired. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about his academic specialisms. What area did he teach in?
He was the professor of Sinhala, so his PhD, he did the PhD in, mainly in sort of linguistics.
Yeah.
And, he Pali and Sanskrit as well.
Yeah.
Well, other than that, actually, he studied quite a lot of Buddhism. Mostly self-learned to start with, I think, but he sort of studied Buddhism very deeply, and then did quite a lot of scholarly activities in Buddhist literature, Buddhism as well.
Right. You said most of your family originates from Horana area. So, and he was very much attached to his village. He was a village at heart, you said. Did he himself grow up in Horana, your father?
Yes, he was born in Horana in a little village around Horana, and my grandfather and grandmother were school teachers in a school in a village school.
Yeah.
And that is where he started his early education as well.
Yeah.
And then later he joined Horana Takshila Central College. Well, those days it was in Central College. I think it's Takshila Vidyalaya.
Then
So that is where he entered
yeah.
the university. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it is Takshila Primary School, actually.
Right.
Those days they had the education until the university entrance. So he finished the education there and joined Peradeniya to study Sinhala. Yeah.
Yeah. So your grandparents were teachers. Your father took it to the next level, went into tertiary further education and excelled in the teaching in the academic world, and that influenced you to the next level. Now, earlier on, you told me that while he was sort of a linguist, specialized in Sinhala, Pali, Buddhism, and he also had a mechanical talent, and he could put his hand to anything, which influenced your direction. So it sounds like he was quite an interesting man to have around.
Well, actually, more than a mechanical engineer. Well, he's very good at doing things, but at the same time, he's a fantastic musician. Actually,
really, right?
Yes, he played numerous instruments. He played tabla and violin, and he played in Professor Sarachandra's dramas in early days when he was at Peradeniya.
Oh, right.
Yeah. He did radio programs in music.
Yeah.
In those days, there was a program called Rasavindana where he conducted with various other people like, Amaradeva and various other people. So he has a very, very, very close association with music.
Yeah.
He was a fabulous musician more than anything.
Yeah. Yes. So that's a multi-talented person then.
Very multi-talented person, yes.
And then you said when students visited at home, obviously, they were taken care of, fed and watered, and time given to them. And I was just looking at this article that you shared with me from Charles Halise. I think he your father supervised him when he came to Sri Lanka, when he was doing his PhD.
Yes.
And he pays a fabulous tribute to the kind of person your dad was. The key things that come out is very much the man who believed in truth, in virtue, and caring for other people. And also the selflessness of the person, because it really strikes a chord with me when you said he was a village at heart. He decided to stay in the village and commute by the local bus to Colombo. Yeah, and if there's no seat, would sit on the battery box, which I can very well remember in the CTB buses.
He's very well known for that.
Yeah. That's the humility, the unassuming nature of the man, which is a great virtue. And then the other thing you said was, as children, you always found your house to be full. There's always visitors, people coming in.
It is. I mean, my grandmother and grandfather are, people who are sort of very much lived in the village with village people, and we always had people around us. And my father, took forward the tradition, and he did the same.
Yeah.
And we have very, very interesting, combination of people in the house all the time. I remember we had a person who drove a bullock cart.
Yes.
And he come every day he came and slept in our house. He parked the bullock cart and attached the bull to a tree, and then he will sleep.
Yeah.
Like that, there are so many people. Even the neighbors, they come and chew betel leaves and talk to my grandfather and everybody in the house. And it is a center where people came and ate and chat, and a busy place.
It's an open house, so
Open house, very much of open
No,
house, and
no
everybody
appointments
was
needed.
everybody was provided food, tea, and and they did things around the house as well. One person come and pluck a jackfruit from a tree, and then they will sort of prepare it, and that sort of thing.
Yes.
So we were surrounded by lots and lots of people.
I think you must have some very fabulous, very warm childhood memories coming out of this with all these different people, all their strengths, weaknesses, and characters. Yeah. So, what do you value most in your father? I'm perhaps repeating this question. We talked about it earlier.
Well, probably the most important thing to me was, he was very, very grounded. I think that was quite important, important to me, and that is the biggest lesson, probably one of the biggest lessons I learned from him. Although he had a very good education and everything, so he could go down to anybody's level at any time and talk with anybody. So that's one of the things. And the other thing is, I think I mentioned he spoke very little. He was a man with very few words. But he led his life by example. We just look at him and learn things rather than he said things. And
right. So he led by example rather than precept, as they say. Powerful. Okay. If your dad was around today, and we had the privilege of inviting him to address some of our families that we support through the scholarship program, and obviously these families will be very curious, want to listen to this professor, this wise man. But knowing your dad, he won't appear like that. He will just turn up like anybody else, sit there talking to them. But what sort of advice, what sort of things he would tell these families to say, what's important in life, or through the daughter's mouth, what message his father would give to these families?
That is quite a difficult one, Mervyn, because I don't know whether he is the person who wants to say things like that. But if he speaks, he would tell that to do well in education, make the most of your life, and turn yourself to be an honest human being. And also to be successful, make the most of the education you have. He valued education more than anything else, I know. That he believed in education, and he sort of, and he committed his life into education. And I'm sure he would say that, do your best. And make use your, take the opportunity, opportunity to learn and educate yourself. But it's hard because he never told those things to us.
It's not his nature to speak like that.
It's not him.
Now, like the rest of the globe, Sri Lanka in particular is going through a really difficult time. perhaps main cause being the pandemic and various other things. What sorts of hope, what sorts of encouragement either he would demonstrate, or the sort of when you as children were hurt or in pain or difficult times, what sort of words of encouragement were heard?
Well, in terms of at the time of difficulties, perhaps, you know, he had various difficulties in his life. I mean, later in his life, he suffered Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And he passed away from Parkinson's. And I mean, the way he faced his life was admirable. He was in a lot of pain, and more than anything else, I think he suffered quite a lot when he couldn't write.
Yeah.
His hand was unstable and he cannot write.
Yeah.
But he worked around it. Initially, he couldn't write, but then he started typing things.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's one example, actually. So he would tell us, you know, persevere and try and overcome the difficulties, not to give up easily, not to be downhearted by the difficulties you have, but you know, and also most of, other than illness and various other things, sometimes the problems come because the life is too complicated. Perhaps one thing he would tell you is that try to be simple. Some of the problems you can sort of alleviate or get rid of by living a simple life.
Simple life, yeah.
That's exactly what he did.
Right.
He had very few things. He didn't have any attachment to material things. I mean, you know, probably to an extreme sometimes. You know? My mother sometimes get upset about it. For example, he, you know, his shoes are always very, very worn, and my mother get, you know, angry, and why don't you buy a new pair of shoes? And he just said, no, it's okay for me. The same thing with clothes and things, and he didn't went for material things, so, you know, collecting wealth or anything like that. I think that made his life quite comfortable and accomplished, perhaps. So that would be something that he will tell everybody, so make life as simple as possible.
Right. You said three things I picked up. One was he valued education, and so making the most of the opportunity given and always learning and developing, improving. The second one around his illness, not giving up, finding ways rather than sitting and complaining, finding ways to overcome and do it. So being innovative, being creative, finding workaround. The third one was that he led a very uncomplicated life, and he did not find satisfaction, fulfillment in surrounding himself with lots of things, appearances, but in simplicity, which are very noble sort of teachers of Buddha as well, most probably, that he lived by, that gave him that happiness, the fulfillment, the person he was.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to tell that I may have not occurred to, it may not have occurred to me to raise at the moment about your life with your father and about your father?
Perhaps not. One other thing I would quite like, I mean, I think my father always sort of did and encouraged us to do is to do something with what you have, return to the community or the people around you. Actually, that's one of the things that he did all the time. You know, as I told you, you know, the students visit him at home,
Yeah.
And then, he will come and tell their sort of personal problems. So, things that something they wanted or something, and he was always there to provide.
Yeah.
From what he has, and the same way he for his colleagues and friends and everybody, he wanted to give something all the time. Perhaps that's what I would like to say to whoever it is. I mean, people may be benefiting from this scholarship scheme. Take the opportunity to have a good education and try and return something to somebody who needs it. As much as you can. It may not be big things. It's not, not bigger things, but whatever you can will be quite important.
So he was a man who believed in giving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. So some people link happiness to receiving, getting, but he was at that level where he found happiness in giving.
Very much so. I mean, not only him. I mean, my mother, my grandparents always sort of, they were not interested in having any material things. None of them. So whatever they had, they were very generous to share. And that I think is quite important, isn't it? It
is indeed. Yes, it's the secret of true happiness.
Yeah. Now I think that actually comes from links to simplicity anyway, isn't it? When you don't need too many things, you don't need too much, so you can give easily. I think it's you got me thinking there, because we live in a time, in a world very materialistic and dominated by media with huge commercial interest in leaving people feel inadequate, dissatisfied unless you have the latest this, latest the other, or the perfume or the dress or the latest fashion, and which actually does more harm than good, because we stop counting our blessings, the good we have, and we always feel that we are in need, that we are poorer than we actually are, and dissatisfied. And until we understand that and not fall victim to that brainwashing, we are led by the nose by somebody who has a commercial interest in making money out of our naivety, our, trying to sell us things we already have. It is. I think it is the norm of today's world, isn't it? Indeed. Yes. And you are surrounded by too many things, and you want too many things all the time. And I think by pursuing these interests, we sometimes miss, very simple pleasures in the life. Indeed. Unfortunately, isn't it? So we want to achieve this, achieve that. I mean. So in that process, sometimes, I mean, achieving a good education is something, but at the same time, you shouldn't be too focused on sort of getting a degree or something, but getting a degree or education just to make yourself rich or famous or anything like that, but to make you a complete human being, I think is more important. That will, then you will not follow too much behind sort of material things in life, isn't it? I mean, of course, today's world, we need things. We need certain things we can't sort of avoid, and we can't live sort of different, many sort of, I mean, you can't be an odd person in the society, but at the same time, I think there are lots of ways and means you can live a simple, fulfilled, accomplished life without pursuing too much of too many things. Now, a saying I heard a while ago, I'm sure you have heard this, that money is a good servant, but a bad master. If we know how to get
money to serve us, our purpose, to do what we want it to do, it's really good. But if we allow money to rule our lives, our beliefs, our decisions, then we become the slave to money, and it will defeat us. So in a way, listening to you, I got this picture of this, your father, not only a learned man, but a wise man who has sort of applied that into life and found true balance, true happiness, which in turn has influenced you and the values that you live by and your contribution to society, both in the academic world. I'm sure you must be doing a lot of other things that I'm even not aware of, to the community, to the family relative to Sri Lanka, the little bit I know, and your commitment and the conversations we had. So the picture I'm taking away is a man from the village who worked hard, achieved a great deal, academic success, very multi-skilled person, really good company, because he had the music, the mechanics, the drama, the writing, people, and all that. So it's a very balanced, very rich person in that sense. Although he did not lord over it to show off, that richness was inside. It didn't matter, the appearance to him didn't matter, because his values were at a different level. And he found true happiness and true fulfillment, and life wasn't without challenges. He himself was tested at the end with Parkinson's, suffering, being debilitated, if it is the right word. It must have been quite frustrating when there's so much an active mind, not being able to communicate, put it in writing. But he wasn't beaten. He found ways to get around that, to do as much as he could to the last moment. So it's being absolute privilege to get to know this person, although I didn't meet him in person, but I have a picture formed and I've seen a couple of photos. So it's been an absolute pleasure having this discussion with you, Arshini. Thank you very much for taking time to share this with us, to tell us a bit about your dad.
Thank you very much, Marvin, to give me this opportunity to talk about him. Actually, you know, when we decided to sponsor a child, and we didn't have to think twice that it should be in his name, because he spent his life on education, and he valued education very much, and he spent in probably his entire life on teaching and scholarship. So yeah, so that was, I mean, I am privileged to do that, to carry his legacy as much as possible. Indeed. And not only me, actually, my family does quite a lot of things together to keep his legacy alive. Yeah. My sister, my mother is still there in Sri Lanka, and my sister and brother do various things to keep his legacy going. Right. And helping other people. So mostly in education. Yes. So while he's no more with us, his legacy lives on. As much as we can, yes. We try and keep it going. Very good. Right. Thank you very much.